Hello, everyone. It's me, Jonathan. Again, your TA here to teach you guys about different forms of elasticity and measuring responsiveness and all that. I'm going to be using the PowerPoint slides. I wasn't able to make my own this week. Sorry about that. Holidays and all that. Yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So what is elasticity? It's a measure of how much quantities demanded and supplied respond to changing market conditions. And it won't change like that. Okay. Let's start with the first one. Price elasticity of demand. It's the measure of the responsiveness of the quantity demanded to price change using the price elasticity of demand. How businesses use it. You understand how demand elasticity shapes your total revenue and your business strategy. Other demand elasticities assess the responsiveness of demand to income and to the prices of other goods. And the price elasticity of supply is the measure of responsiveness of the quantity supplied to price changes using the price elasticity of supply. Price elasticity of demand. What does the law of demand tell us? When the price rises, the quantity demanded will fall. By how much? This is determined by the price elasticity of demand. So price elasticity of demand, as definition, a measure of how responsive buyers are to price changes. To calculate it, the price elasticity of demand is equal to the percent change in quantity demanded over the percent change in price. The price elasticity of demand measured by what percent the quantity demanded changes in response to a 1% price change. The price elasticity of demand is negative. Movement along the demand curve follows the law of demand, and price and quantity changes always move in the opposite direction. For now, we're going to use the absolute value. The absolute value focuses on the magnitude of the price elasticity of demand, and we know the direction, always negatives, allows us to focus on the size of the change. Here's a quick example. When Uber cut fares in New York City by 15%, it found that demand for rides increased by 30%. What is the absolute value of the price elasticity of demand for Uber rides? You're going to do absolute value of the price elasticity of demand is equal to positive 30% over negative 15% equal to negative 2. Price elasticity of demand is equal to 2. Pretty easy, right? It looks like the rest of these slides, no? All right, I'm just going to do the practice questions then. I'm actually going to skip the practice questions. I'll go through them at the end on another video. What does the number mean? The absolute value of the price elasticity is greater than 1, then demand is elastic. The percent change in quantity is larger than the percent change in price. Quantity is very responsive to changes in price, and the demand curve is relatively flat. If the absolute value of the price elasticity is less than 1, demand is inelastic. The percent change in quantity is smaller than the percent change in price. Quantity is not responsive to changes in price, and the demand curve is relatively steep. Over here, we have the same change in price can cause a different change in quantity depending on the elasticity. A fall in the price of gas will cause the quantity demanded to rise. By how much depends on whether buyers have an inelastic demand. Buyers are not very responsive to price, so the quantity demanded rises only a little. Boom. Inelastic demand curve, very steep. A small rise in quantity demand in quantity demanded if the demand is inelastic. Over here, B, we have an elastic demand curve. Buyers are very responsive to the price, so the demand rises by a lot. So you can see it's a very flat curve. There's a big rise in quantity demanded because it's elastic. The $1 price change that we see on the purple inelastic demand curve causes so much more demand for the elastic demand curve than the inelastic demand curve. Over here, we have the definitions of perfectly inelastic demand. The percent change in quantity is 0 for any percent change in price. It means that the quantity demanded is unchanged for any change in price. The absolute value of the price of elasticity of demand is equal to 0. You have a vertical demand curve. If the price increases or decreases, the quantity will never change no matter what the price changes or any change in price. Inelastic demand, the percent change in quantity is smaller than the percent change in price. So the quantity demand is relatively unresponsive to a change in price. The absolute value of the price elasticity of demand is less than 1. Over here, you've got your nice steep demand curve. which we just went through on the previous slide. The elastic demand, the percent change in quantity, is larger than the percent change in price. So the quantity demanded is relatively responsive to a change in price. Absolute value of the price elasticity of demand is greater than 1. So you have a relatively flat demand curve, which we saw on the previous slide. And now perfectly elastic demand, the percent change in quantity is infinite for any percent change in price. The quantity demanded is infinitely responsive to a change in price. Absolute value of the price of demand is equal to infinity. Yeah, you got that right here with that. Oh, sorry, still learning this PowerPoint stuff. Yeah, if there's any change in quantity, it's infinite for any percent change in price. Yeah. Discussion questions. What do you think about raising the minimum wage? The price elasticity of demand for labor tells us how much demand for labor will change when there's an increase in price. Do you think that demand for labor at a wage of $7.25 per hour is elastic or inelastic? I'm going to skip the discussion questions because this isn't a live lecture. Determinants of the price elasticity of demand. The price elasticity of demand reflects the availability of substitutes. It is larger in the following circumstances. There are more competing products for specific brands rather than broad categories, and for things that aren't necessities. When consumers search more, when there's more time to adjust, these all will cause the price elasticity of demand to be larger. Demand elasticity factor 1, more competing products means greater elasticity. You'll be more price sensitive when you're shopping at a Walmart than at a small corner store. In the Walmart, you can see in this picture, there's lots of different products, lots of different substitutes, lots of everything. But if you're at this corner store here, you've got a few rolls of toilet paper. You don't really have competing brands. You've got very few going on. So as you think about competing products, remember to think broadly. Southwest Airlines, United Airlines, and Delta Airlines flights are all substitute products, but so are trains and driving. Say we're going from New York to Boston. We don't need to fly. The train is a substitute, the bus is a substitute, but the flight can also be a substitute. Maybe you want to save your time and all that, whatever, all that. Demand elasticity factor number 2. Specific brands tend to have more elastic demand than categories of goods have. For example, a specific brand of cereal is more elastic than the overall category of breakfast cereals. You can eat many things other than Cheerios for breakfast, and there are fewer things to eat for breakfast if you omit the category of breakfast cereal. Factor 3, necessities have less elastic demand. Things that you really can't do without are things you will keep buying even as the price rises. A necessity is something where there isn't a good substitute available, like medicine as a necessity, water a necessity. And over here, you got a little graph showing that the absolute value of the price elasticity of demand for a bunch of goods. And you can see restaurant meals, Honey Nut Cheerios right there at the bottom. Well, rice, pasta, eggs, water, public transportation, all these things that really there aren't many substitutes for. They're basically necessities for most people. Right there at the top with very inelastic price elasticities of demand. Consumer search makes demand more elastic. The more you search for a good price, the more likely you are to find an acceptable lower price substitute. Goods that are not perishable can allow for a longer search time and thus are more elastic. Think of if you're willing to go to Hannaford's for toilet paper, and then you go to the pharmacy for toilet paper, and then you walk into another store for toilet paper. The more you search for toilet paper, the more your demand is elastic. And demand gets more elastic over time. More substitutes will become available over time. More substitute means more elastic demands. Demand is more elastic in the long run. Demand is more elastic in the long run than in the short run. But how long is the long run? It depends on when more substitutes will become available. If you're the first person to create a product, the demand isn't very elastic. People are buying or people aren't buying. But then suddenly a bunch of people are putting out similar products. Your demand becomes a lot more elastic. Discussion question I'm going to skip. Calculating the price elasticity of demand. The problem with calculating percentage change is that it depends on the starting point. The midpoint formula measures the percent change between any 2 points relative to the point midway between those 2 points. The percentage change in quantity midpoint, Q2 minus Q1 over Q2 plus Q1 over 2 times 100. And percent change in price midpoint, P2 minus P1 over P plus P1 over 2 times 100. Calculating the price elasticity of demand. An example, not going to work through this example. I'll work through it after. More practice questions. Roadmap, how businesses use demand elasticity. Knowing the price elasticity of demand for your product allows you to forecast how price changes will affect your revenue and profits. Total revenue is the total amount you receive from buyers. Total revenue is equal to price times quantity. Over here, you got a little graph of that. The same change in price can cause total revenue to rise or fall depending on the elasticity. If demand is elastic, a higher price yields less revenue. Old revenue, new revenue. A lot less, a lot more. If demand is inelastic, a higher price yields more revenue. Old revenue. Oh, wait. Okay, we didn't get it like that. All right. Old revenue, new revenue. You see this boxes of revenue is a lot bigger than this little box. The same change in price can cause total revenue to rise or fall depending on the elasticity. If the demand for your product is currently inelastic, should you increase or decrease your prices? Why or why not? This is another discussion question. Using demand elasticity, an example. Another one we're going to be skipping. Another practice question. Other demand elasticities. Assess the responsiveness of demand to income and to price of other goods. The interdependence principle reminds us to consider how decisions interact with each other. What happens to quantity demanded when the price of other good changes or when your income changes? Cross-price elasticity of demand, a measure of how responsive the demand of one good is to price changes of another. And income elasticity of demand, a measure of responsiveness demand for a good is to changes in income. We're going to do the cross-price elasticity of demand first. So it measures how sensitive quantity demand is to price changes of other goods. Just said that. It measures the percentage change quantity demanded that follows from a 1% price rise in another good. This is positive for substitute. If the price of Pepsi goes up, you buy more Coke instead. But it's negative for complements. If the price of printers goes up, you buy fewer cartridges. So over here, you got cross-price elasticity of demand, your little formula. Well, won't do that. All right, great. Percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in price of another good. The cross-price elasticity is near zero for independent goods, such as Pepsi and shoes. If the price of shoes rises, not going to care how much Pepsi you buy. Should be around zero. Another practice question. Income elasticity of demand. Income elasticity of demand measures how sensitive quantity demanded is to changes in income. It measures a percent change in quantity demanded following a 1% rise in income. This is positive for normal goods, restaurant, meals, Negative for inferior goods such as ramen noodles. Income elasticity of demand is equal to percentage change in quantity demanded over the percentage change in income. Over here, you got that same graph from before, the inferior goods to normal goods, and the income elasticity of demand. You see airplane tickets all the way here in the positive because that's really a normal good. Processed fruits and vegetables at negative 0.3, but organic fruit over here in 0.2. If ramen noodles was on here, I bet it'd be really low also. Yeah, you guys get it. Another practice question. And the price elasticity of supply. Measure the responsiveness of the quantity supplied to price changes using the price elasticity of supply. So price elasticity of supply measures how responsive sellers are to price changes. The price elasticity of supply measures by what percentage the quantity supplied will increase following a 1% price rise. The larger this percentage change in quantity supplied is, the more responsive sellers are to price changes. Because of the law of supply, price elasticity of supply is positive. And over there is the formula. The price elasticity of supply is equal to the percent change in quantity supplied over the percent change in the price. Over here, we got more graphs, all that, perfectly inelastic supply, much like before, it's a vertical supply curve. Change in quantity supplied is 0 for any percent change in price. Inelastic, one more time, very steep supply curve. The price elasticity of supply is less than 1. The percentage change in quantity supplied is smaller than the change in price. Elastic supply, again, very flat. Again, it's bigger than 1. The percentage change in quantity supplied is larger than the percent change in price. The quantity supplied is relatively responsive to a change in price. Perfectly elastic. The price elasticity of supply is infinite. The supply curve is horizontal. The change in quantity supplied is infinite for any percentage change in price. Determinants of the price elasticity of supply. The price elasticity of supply depends on how flexible your business can be. It's larger for the following circumstances: for firms that store inventories, when inputs are easily available; for firms with extra capacity, when firms can easily enter and exit the market; when there's more time to adjust. For calculating, the midpoint formula learned for demand works for supply too. Percentage change in quantity supplied, Q2 minus Q1 over Q2 plus Q1 over 2 times 100, and the percent change in price, P2 minus P1 over P plus P1 over 2, all that times 100. Another example, another practice question. Key takeaways. Woo. Elasticity measures the responsiveness of quantity to other factors. And here's a quick look at 4 formulas that you are going to need to know. Demand is more elastic when substitutes exist. Knowing whether price elasticity is positive or negative can help businesses maximize revenue. Cross-price elasticity is positive for substitutes and negative for complements. Income elasticity is positive for normal goods and negative for inferior goods. And supply is more elastic when firms have flexibility. All right, I hope you guys appreciated it. I'm going to try and get you guys the video of me working through the solutions really quickly. Depends on when you guys have class, when I'm finishing this. But yeah, awesome. Thank you so much and have a great day.